Well, it didn't take long. People are already getting busy building Compute Module 4 and Compute Module 5 carrier boards. Now, this is an interesting one. Pineboards sent me the Modulo 4 and the Modulo 5. Both of these are Compute Module carriers, but the Modulo 4 is for Compute Module 4, and the 5 is for the Compute Module 5. Makes sense. Some interesting things, though. The Compute Module 4 is an older compute module with older features, but this lets you basically use it as a Raspberry Pi 5. You can see here that it has a PCI Express header, just like the Pi 5, so you can put Pi 5 hats onto here. And the same thing with the Modulo 5, you can put Pi 5 hats on here. So what's cool about this is I always like having the ability to adapt anything to anything, and this lets you put hats that are intended for the regular Pi 5 onto a compute module. If you have a carrier board that fits your needs better, that's actually, a better option, but these boards both have camera and display ports here. For the Modulo 4, it looks like it's just camera. They can't do dual purpose like the Pi 5 does, or the CM5. The CM5, it says MIPI 1, MIPI 2, or MIPI 0 and 1. And then there's also a few other little differences, like both of them have RTC battery connections and fan headers for plugging in a fan. Realtek makes this nice little cooler that I've been using and enjoy using on all the different CM modules. And it also has a debug header that works with Raspberry Pi's own little debug, the little, whatever that thing's called. I don't know. This is a second channel video. I'm not doing any research. And then it has dual HDMI, USB-C power input, GPIO header, and then all the ports. And you can see the big difference is on the 5, it has USB 3, and on the 4, it just has regular USB 2. 4 ports of that. So there's probably a few other things I'm not noticing, but there's a micro SD card slot on both sides. And I think that the ones I have are prototypes. They're not the final version. There might be some little difference, so look at the website if you want to see everything. But the reason I think this is interesting is I also got this in the mail. This is a from wisdPi. I'll have to ask them how they actually pronounce that. This is something I was asking for months, maybe years now. I wanted to do more networking stuff with a Pi at higher speeds, and the CM5 is great at 5 gigabits, and this is a 5 gigabit PoE hat. Now this works on the Pi 5, but using the Modulo 5, or even the Modulo 4 with the Compute Module 4, you can get 5 gigabit Ethernet with PoE support. So this should power the Pi as well. I don't know if it's going to work on here because I don't know how the power circuit is set up, but it should work. I don't see any reason why it won't. But I thought it'd be fun to try this out on here instead of just on a Pi 5 to see if I could take a Compute Module 4, which is the older one. If you have an old device that had one of these in it and you rip it out of there, maybe you could give it a second life as a little 5 gigabit PoE device. I don't know. There's still uses for it. The great thing is this kind of board will make this older computer still have use in life, and I'm always a fan of finding new purposes for old hardware. So just like in the home lab community, we buy old little 1-liter PCs and repurpose them. This can find new life. If you upgrade to a CM5 on something, maybe this could be a new 5 gigabit little network device. So I'm going to try setting this up. Now wisdPi has a wiki, and the wiki doesn't have a whole lot in terms of setup stuff. It should be pretty straightforward, but still. It'd be nice if the wiki had like a little guide for setting this up. I'm going to set the Modulo 5 and CM5 aside for now. They also sent over this. I am not going to test it today, but this is basically a PoE Plus version of the Compute Module 5 I/O board. There's a couple little differences on here. I think this is a not final design, but it's supposed to fit inside the dev kit case as well. So you could have a PoE computer with all the ports on one side. Very cool. But we'll talk about that some other time maybe. But for now, let's get this together. It said on the website that there was a guide for setting this up. I don't see that guide. I don't see anything included in here. So I'm just going to guess that we have to plug this in and get this stuff going. I don't have a fan on the Compute Module 4, so it might overheat, but sometimes that's necessary. Overheating things a little bit. Sorry if the framing's off. Second channel video. It's not November anymore, so I guess it's not no effort November. But let's get this all going. We got some standoffs, which I don't have a guide for where they go exactly. We got a couple FFCs. These obviously go into here. So this goes to the Pi 5, or in this case, a Compute Module 4. Isn't that crazy? So that'll go in there. I don't know if this should go in first or after, but we'll find out. We'll find out all these things after we start doing stuff. And I already pre-flashed PiOS to this. There's a driver for this this little chip inside here on wisdPi's GitHub, so we'll have to get that going. So how are we going to do this? I guess probably we need tall standoffs here. That's my guess. And then these probably go underneath. And I'm just hand tightening everything. But if you're going to do a permanent install, definitely use a little wrench or a little a driver that has the right bit size to tighten these up a little bit. Okay. All right, so we got that on there. And I'm going to try just doing this and sliding it down. I always hate these long headers. And then this goes into here. I think that's it. Okay. And my guess is that the design of this is so that where is it? Here it is. There's these little USB-C to USB-C adapters, and I guess you just plug it in like this, and that's probably how it gets power. I don't even know if this GPIO header is necessary, but it does give you the ability to stack another hat on top. Okay. I think that's everything we need to do. Now I have a PoE switch. It's only 2.5 gigs, so we're not going to get 5 gigs through here, but if you had a 5 gig PoE switch, this should work ideally at PoE 5 or at 5 gig speeds. I could also just test this as a 5 gig network adapter without the PoE. I might do that as well. But let's see. I'll grab my network cable, which I had sitting here. Hold on a second. And plug this into my little switch. Plug it in. And yep, yeah, we got system power. Green. Okay, I hear a tiny bit of coil whine. Oh, there's some lights. Here we go. Now we got some blinking going on. And my HVAC system just turned on, so sorry if you hear that. So you can see those lights in the corner here. And this is a Compute Module 4, so I also didn't think about that. It could be interesting. And usually when you plug in a Pi the first time, it has to do like 2 or 3 reboot cycles. So we'll give it another minute or so, and then we'll check and see if we can log into it. And I am always happy when they include an extra cable because these are fairly fragile. They do break sometimes. I don't know if that's where that goes, but I just put it in there. Okay, it looks like that's its 3rd reboot. So hopefully it comes up now. I'm going to move back over to the computer here. All right, back on the computer, I'm going to SSH into it, cm4.local. And I already set this up on Wi-Fi, so I don't think there's a driver for, the driver for the 5 gig chip is not built in. It's a Realtek driver, and it's pretty new, so I think it's in Linux kernel like 6.12. So you can see there's the built-in Ethernet, but there's not this would be a ETH1, a new Ethernet port. So I set up Wi-Fi in Pi Imager over here when I flashed the card. That way it gets on the network even without a network connection through its built-in Ethernet. So we need to get the driver going. So let me go over here to this wisdPi. So if you go to their website, it has a little information about it. And if you go to their wiki, it has some information about it and a link to the driver, which is here. And it looks like their instructions are to clone this repository and install the driver. You could probably install Realtek's driver direct too, but I'm just going to do it from here, from their little fork. And so we'll go git clone. Oh, git's not found. I have to install -y git. Let's grab git. All right, now we have git. And then we want to cd into that directory. And then we'll try installing. As long as you have kernel version 6.6, this driver should work, at least at this point in time. Hopefully the drivers will be included in whatever the next release is, but let's see if this works. Let's see what else it wants us to do. Reboot after that, and then we can check if it's loaded. Okay, well, I'll come back in a minute. Okay, that finished up, so let's reboot. And again, this is all on a Compute Module 4. A Compute Module 5 would get a little more bandwidth on a 5 gigabit connection, but like I said, my switch here, my PoE switch, is 2.5 gig. It's actually kind of rare to find a 5 gig PoE switch, so I'd like to see more of them because I think 5 gigabits is a worthy upgrade over 2.5 and still a lot cheaper than 10 gig for some weird reason. And usually things don't get quite as hot either using 5 gigs instead of 10. There it is, IPA, and there we go, Ethernet 1. So we have a link, and we'll use ethtool, ethtool, eth1, and it says it's 22.5 gigabits. That's working, and we'll do a quick speed test. So we'll go iperf3-s on my computer, and then you have to install it, sudo apt install iperf3. Now we can do iperf3-c 10.0.2.15. Check what speed we're getting. Yeah, 2.35 gigabits. Pretty typical for a 2.5 gig connection. I think what I'll do, I'm going to unplug it and not use the PoE part, but use 5 gigabit and see what the CM4 can do. So, because I know the CM5 can do 5 gigabits. It does like 4.7. So we'll see how much the CM4 can do. We'll say sudo shutdown. So I have this plugged into a 5 gig port. At least I think. I've actually never tested the 5 gig port on this MokerLink router, but you can see it's not getting power at this point. So I'm going to unplug this. That's a little hairy. Okay, that's out of there. And I'll grab one of my Pi power adapters here and plug in. There we go. And we'll see if we get a connection at 5 gigabits now that we have the driver installed. I'm getting activity light on the PoE hat, so let's SSH in and check. So we still have a link on here, and if I go ethtool eth1, there's 5 gigabits. Let's check the speed now. So if you go back to here, the CM4 can get 3.26 gigabits. That's about in line with what I've tested before on 10 gigabit adapters. I think in some cases you can get closer to 4 gigabits, but this is realistically pretty good. But again, you know, CM4, you could do a 2.5 or 5 gigabit adapter and give it a new life. So I'm really happy with seeing Pineboards build this little CM4 adapter. That was kind of out of the blue. I had no idea they were going to work on that. It's very cool. A new way to repurpose your CM4 boards if you don't need all the grunt of a CM5 and the power draw. This is going to draw a little bit less. And there's going to be a lot of CM4s floating around. Like if you find old industrial devices, a lot of them have a compute module in it. So as you can find those and rip them out of there, you could repurpose them into little builds like this. And I couldn't just leave you hanging. We do have to try this on the Compute Module 5. I really want to see if this Realtek cooler will fit underneath the card or not. I think these screws are gonna be the thing that messes this up. Oh boy, that's gonna be awfully close. Yeah. Yeah, so if you try it with this Realtek cooler, the Realtek cooler's screws, it looks like, and the fins themselves are a little bit too high to get this USB adapter working, but could we still get it plugged in? And I don't think it needs the GPIO pins. I think that's just a convenience. Let's see if it works with the cooler. If it doesn't, then a Pi cooler might work. Will it reach? Oh man, that's so close. So close. Okay, there we go. Now let's see how we do on the Compute Module 5. Now I'm going to power it externally, of course, because I can't get this USB-C to USB-C adapter working. But let's see what happens here. And I'm going to pop over to the computer and we'll see what we get. Okay, I was testing this and it was going a little slow. Something was weird, and it looks like what's happening is maybe the connection that I have is a little flaky because of the I had to stretch the connector. Oh, there's even some call traces and things. That's interesting. So something's a little funny here with this. I don't know if it's the driver or the hardware connection that I have. I'm going to reseat it and see if that helps. Okay, we're booted back up. Let's see. This is looking a little more promising. We're still getting this, which is interesting. IPA. Yeah, we're not getting a link. I don't know if it might be, so when you're using prototype hardware, which the Modulo5 is, the one that I have, sometimes things might not be connected perfectly. I also noticed that when I plugged in the Pi CM5, it didn't seat perfectly. I'm going to try it on a Pi 5 really quick to make sure that it works there. Okay, we will try on this little Pi 5. I don't know if this will fit. We'll see. With this Argon 40 thermal, with the little cable that gets in the way sometimes. Yeah, it'll fit. We can do it. I'm just going to do this the jank way. And I'll switch over the little PCIe cable as well. Like I said, these cables are slightly fragile, so it could be that I messed this up already. I do like how they printed the white kind of where it's supposed to go into, so that you have a reference point. There we go. Okay. Let's see if we can get 5 gigabits on the Pi 5. I still have it set as CM5, but this is actually the Pi 5. But let's try installing the driver first. IPA. So you don't see the ETH1. Get over here, grab the driver again. Okay, IPA, and there we go. We have a link. We'll do ETH tool ETH1. We got 5 gigabits, and I think I have my thing up here, so let's try iPerf 3. I love how much faster things are on the Pi 5. Every time I go back to a Pi 4, it feels like going back to like a Pi 2 or 3. It's just slow. iPerf 3-C, and we should be getting, we're not getting like 4.7 gigabits. Oh, you know what? We're using PCI Express Gen 2 speed. To get full speed, I have a post on my blog with the command, but basically this. You need to grab this and sudo nano boot firmware config, and paste that right down here and reboot. Okay, we still have a link here, and if I do iPerf again, should be getting closer. There you go, 4.7 gigabits. So the CM5 good up to 4.7, the CM4 down at 3 point something, 3.2, 3.3. This is interesting. I wonder if we've overheated or something, or if I hit link errors again. Looks like it, there we go. It stopped working. Let's check what's going on. Transmit timeout, reset device, device resetting. Interesting. I wonder if there's either a driver issue or could still be a physical link issue. I could have damaged that cable and we're just seeing effects of that. Let's try another iPerf. See what happens here. 4.7 gigs. 4.71 gigs. It's stable now, so I think you just got to be careful when you install this to be delicate with that cable. I'm guessing that I screwed up the cable when I was stretching it out. Don't do that. Do as I say, not as I do. But now it looks stable, and I'll also try and reverse just to check the speeds coming back from my computer to this. -- reverse. And yeah, we're getting a lot less. I think this is a driver issue. I saw this with another Realtek chip. I think their driver has some weird issue when you're sending data back and forth. Like sending the data out from the Realtek chip is great, but getting it back is not as great. And is there anything in the kernel? No, nothing about that. But if I do bidirectional, this is sending data back and forth as fast as possible. I'm actually getting faster speeds. So I think there's something in the driver, the Realtek driver, that causes that slowdown if there's traffic just going in one direction. Because bidirectional seems to be working great. But when you send, well, relatively great, we're getting 3 gigabits back. But if you send data just back, it slows down. So if I go back to here, reverse, see I'm getting 300 megabits. I think there's a sleep state or something in the chip. Anyway, that's not about this device, that's about Realtek's driver. But it's very cool to have this, and I will do another outro because this is Level 2 Jeff, and we do crazy things here. But in general, these are the speeds that you'll get up here. It's definitely a viable option for a 5 gigabit little network device. If you have a splitter, you could use like NVMe and this, or if you use a USB drive, an SSD, you could copy data back at 3 or 4 gigabits probably. I haven't tested that yet, but I love seeing more options, and I love seeing PoE everywhere. Very cool to see a 5 gigabit PoE hat, even though network devices with PoE at 5 gigabits are very rare right now and pretty expensive, but it will be less expensive than 10 gigs. I don't know why 10 gigs is still so expensive, but yeah. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.